March 28th, 2022. You're listening to Oblast with Don and Kevin. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Don.
And
I am.
We are back.
Here we are.
Ides of March. Yeah, had kind of a busy weekend this weekend, although nothing really exciting happened. I went and saw that Sandra Bullock movie with Channing Tatum and Brad Pitt.
The dog? Oh.
No, it's like The Lost City or something like that.
Yeah, whatever.
It was funny. It was all right. I mean, a lot of rom-coms are terrible. This wasn't too bad, actually. It was kind of funny at parts. Yeah. And I don't know. Just did some other stuff.
That's all I got to say about that.
Just did some other stuffs around. I don't know. I get pretty freaking bored though. Sunday I was just like I really wanted to go do something, but there's nothing to do. I mean, it's the worst. I got nobody's doing anything, and I can't formulate shit to do. It's like I don't know. So I just
if you try to get people together, all they do is ask questions. Well, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go? What time are you going to be there? How long are you going to stay? Who else is going? It's like, just show up.
It's like let's say, let's say I go to a bar or something. I invite somebody to go, right? Like, who's going to go? Like, C's got kids. Joe hangs out in his basement. Oz has kids. Dan has kids. It's getting, it's getting a little long in the tooth with these kids, by the way. I mean, come on. You had your kids late, and, your kid's almost an adult. Some of these people, their kids, what the hell? Did they have kids after you? I don't understand.
No, they're all the same age.
I guess so. It's kind of weird. Well, not Cease.
Well, not Cease.
Cease had a young kid,
Yeah. Not Cease.
But some of these
Packard. Well, Packard had kids after me.
Dan's kids are around.
They're older than mine.
Barely. Gary's should be. All Gary's kids should be graduated from college by now. I mean, he's been married forever.
They're all in college and stuff.
I mean, they ought to be. Shit.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they all are.
It's ridiculous.
But yeah, so it's hard to get this group of people together. Anybody from it.
Yeah, one thing that we were talking about is when I went out with Joe, Dan, and Cease, Dan was like, yeah, you're going to have to put together the get-together for the, to get everybody together. He's saying that to me because nobody else is going to do it. Oz ain't going to do that shit no more. And I was like, I don't know. I think all I'm going to do, man, if I do anything, is I'm just going to rent the party room at Arturo's or something, and then just have everybody come for holiday wings like we do. Not that everybody eats wings, they can eat whatever the fuck they want, but invite, because the last time we did that, I don't think you were there, but
no,
there was 20, 25 people. It was a lot, and it was shocking. It's not all the original group of people. I mean, you have people like Tripp and those guys, But yeah. So I'll probably maybe do something like that once a year to just keep everybody together, because nobody goes to Cinema Wasteland anymore. Although, speaking of which, you should go to Cinema Wasteland. You should just pop in. We should try to hook, sync up, because I'm not going to go very long if I go. I'm probably going to go though. But I'm not going to stay because why? You know what I mean? What am I just going to sit in the room and drink? You know what I mean? While music that I don't really like is going to be really loud.
Oz is going to play the music really loud. The air conditioner is going to be on, and your brother's just going to be sitting there telling weird stories.
Or he's going to look really, really tired and one of those two things, right? But anyway, yeah, if you show up, I'll give you that Sabotage record.
Right on.
But we'll have to sync what times and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm most likely going on Saturday, so I don't think I'll be there.
Yeah, Brian, my brother, he got a room, but he said he only got it for one day. I'm assuming it's Saturday to Sunday, but he's like, I got to drive. So I don't know what that means. I don't know what. I'll ask him. I doubt he has it from Friday to Saturday, but you never know with your brother. Right. It's random.
You might have it Thursday to Friday for all we know.
I mean, Law isn't on Facebook anymore, so it's impossible to like figure out if he's going and if he's got a room. You know what I mean? He just kind of like dropped off the face of the earth unless you want to get a tattoo done.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. Whatever. All right. So anyway, I wanted to touch on a few topics today.
Sure.
Since we've been talking so much about television and movies, I want to get back to some more serious. Sort of serious. Yeah. Somewhat serious subject. First thing, kind of less serious, but something I was thinking about the other day is, like I walk up, I walk about 3 miles a day, and I walk past this sign that says deaf it says
deaf children at play.
Well, you know what, they used to say that, and now it says something like I don't know. It's not deaf. It's not deaf child zone, but they're not trying to say like the kid's playing right now. They're saying something like a deaf kid lives here, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking about like, who's that sign for? Because it's like, what are you going to do? You're going to drive down the road. You see a kid in the road. You honk your horn, and the kid doesn't listen. You just run the kid over, and you're like, officer, I don't know. I mean,
I honked my horn.
Yeah, I honked. He didn't move. I said, fuck it. I ran him over.
Yeah.
I mean, what difference does it make if the kid's deaf? Is that because you're going to yell at him? Hey, get out of the road. He's not going to listen to you. He's going to be like walking away. I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't understand what that sign's for. You're going to be more attentive or something? Like, well, this kid might run out in the middle of the street because he can't hear the car or something. Like, why would he run out in the middle of the street? Like, that's ridiculous.
A kid who can hear might run out into the street.
Right. Right.
And I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'll stop.
Yes, right, exactly. I mean, kids are just as distracted. I think they got headphones. They're looking at their phone, their phones or whatever. They get earphones, whatever you want to call them. Yeah, it's I mean, they're not gonna hear the car. I just don't understand. That sign is a weird sign to me, man. I don't get it. I don't. It's just the deer. Even the deer sign is kind of strange too. Because what are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do? Yeah. It shows that leaping deer. Am I going to drive slower? Nah, probably not, right? I'm just going to drive. I mean, and if a deer jumps out, I'll press the brake, and hopefully I don't fuck up my car. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to. I don't understand, man. I just don't get it.
It's like those baby on board signs. It's like, it's just, I don't know. It's just pointless. It's like, okay, so.
The baby on board sign. That was a big thing for like a minute.
Remember when that first started? And like everybody was getting them, and they're like, hey, be careful. There's a baby on board. And people are just like, it doesn't matter if I run out of control, if my brakes stop working.
Right.
It's not like the car is going to be like, well, hold on a second. There's a baby on board.
I'm going to be more careful driving around with the baby or something.
Yeah. I know half those people didn't have babies in there. They just had the sign because they didn't want people hitting.
Yeah, because 90% of the time the baby's at home. They weren't driving, but they didn't want to take the sign down. And then they made all those funny signs about all the different people that were on board, but then it got old, Yeah. Yeah. It's like, all right. It's just dumb.
Yeah, the deaf child at play, or they'd be like blind child at play. It's like, okay, well, the kid runs in the street. Like I said, I'm doing the same thing I would have done if it was a kid who could see or a kid who could hear or whatever.
Exactly. What is it telling you? I don't slow down, go a little bit slower, because maybe the kid. Like, I've been walking up and down this road now for like 10 years. I've never seen a kid, let alone the deaf kid. You know what I mean? The kids aren't playing outside. They're very rarely outside. So, it's whatever. And they're not in the street. We used to play in the street sometimes. That used to be a thing. These days, I never see kids playing in the street. Maybe in the ghetto or something, or, not the ghetto, but like the inner city. They play like basketball and stuff in the street. Okay, that makes sense. But, yeah, York Road, man. Like, that's a busy ass road. Like, if that kid runs out in the street, he's done. I don't know.
Right.
It's just
hearing's going to be the last thing he's worried about.
Right. Not going to be good for him. So, there's been a lot of rhetoric about, the Russians, had said that they were going to put their nuclear weapons on alert status, and our president saying things like, Putin's a war criminal, and, he needs to be removed from power and all this sort of stuff, because Biden, he can't be checked much better than Trump was. And you sit around and you wonder to yourself, man, if this thing did escalate, it won't because Russia, like Putin, if you watch TV and you watch Putin, he doesn't sit near anybody because he's afraid of COVID or something else. And he just doesn't want to catch anything and he doesn't want to be assassinated. So that guy's afraid to die. So he doesn't want to like trigger nuclear war because his ass will be, he'll be barbecued in no time. So that it won't happen. But if it did happen, I was thinking like, when we were growing up, we had movies like The Day After and a lot of like news things that would talk about if we went to war with the Soviet Union and how it would happen. And nuclear missiles back then with the nuclear triad was an all or nothing kind of deal in the sense of, if we were to use them, we would probably level all their cities and they would level all of ours. That's how we looked at it. Right. So like if you live near a major city or a military base, it was very likely that, your city would be erased off the map, basically, by a nuclear strike. And, as would all of Russia and most of Europe. But, in years later now, weapons have become much more precision guided. And I think the thought process on the use of nuclear weapons outside of the hands of a madman, let's say, like, maybe North Korea or something, is that I think if nuclear weapons were ever brought to bear, they would probably be used on military targets. So, the United States, which I always like to talk about, has like 11 aircraft carriers driving around the ocean. And those things are basically like, just military bases, essentially. It's not just an aircraft carrier. It's all the other ships that go with it, the missile frigates and the destroyers and the submarines underwater. And I mean, it's, they tend to be a group and
a package.
Yeah, a whole package. And, they operate, as a force that's very difficult to take down. I know China and Russia have talked about having these hypersonic missiles and things that they can shoot and hit these targets, but we don't really know how effective any of that crap would be, nor do they against all, our defensive capability on these things. We don't talk too much about everything that our ships can do in order to defend themselves. I think that if we had weaknesses against things like that, we would probably build countermeasures that would probably be effective. But anyway, you can't really countermeasure a nuclear bomb. I mean, a missile coming out of the sky at 5,000 miles an hour that's just going to like ignite into a massive fireball is going to just like destroy that whole pack. And so that kind of attack I could see hitting. Certainly you could see a nuclear blast hit leadership targets like Washington, D.C. But I don't think that leadership in general wants to be a mass murderer. I don't think anybody wants to go down as a mass killer. Just like, hey, I could nuke New York City and kill, tens of millions of people. But what for? You know what I mean? Just to kill people? That's what you're kind of talking about. Like, and we would probably be in the same boat. Like, would we really want to nuke, Volgograd or something in Russia? No, I mean, what for? St. Petersburg? No. I mean, not really. Not unless it was like our only way to do it. The other thing is that nuclear weapons are, they tend to be, they're not really necessary anymore. We kind of keep them because they're scary. Right. But realistically, in World War II, which is what, they originally we designed it for, right? You couldn't get at Hitler or at the Emperor of Japan if you wanted to kill him or the leadership. You just couldn't get to him. Bombs were terribly inaccurate. You could fly a plane over and drop a bomb, and they weren't super powerful. So, if you were in a good concrete bunker like Hitler was, you can't kill the guy. So you'd have to basically fight your way up to the guy's door, and kick it in and get the guy. And if you wanted to kill leadership, and so wherever there was leadership, you had to basically go through a prolonged process of fighting your way over to the guy in order to kill them or get them or whatever. And even if you look at like what's going on in the Ukraine right now, like Putin would like to get rid of the leaders of Ukraine. He supposedly has a bigger military than the Ukraine does, and he's not able to do it. But today, for many countries like the United States, it would be fairly easy to eliminate a leader if you wanted to. Like, you can go into hiding like Saddam Hussein or bin Laden, and we eventually find you and root you out. But if you're like a leader of like a big country like Russia or something, you're going to be like probably pretty easy to figure out where you are. You know what I mean? Like, you might be in a really good bunker, but how long are you really going to be down there for? Like,
Right.
and so you don't really need to drop a nuke in order to get that guy out of there. We have so many smart precision weapons that can go in, as well as, highly skilled and trained troops that can go in and take targets out like they did with bin Laden or they found Saddam Hussein. That it's just not necessary anymore. We don't have that kind of barrier that exists that we have to, resort to something like that to get a war to stop. So it's, they're mostly just there as, for lesser countries like, say, like a North Korea, they're there as a sort of a threat to other countries. Like, hey, you better not mess with us or we'll drop nukes on you. But I mean, I feel like it's only a matter of time before missile defense works well enough and it can be operated from our ships at sea that we'll be able to, like, basically, stop any kind of missile attack that would be started, and I think that doesn't necessarily preclude all nuclear possibility. You could put a nuclear bomb on the flatbed of a truck, and drive it over into a city, and kaboom. But I think that the overall threat of nuclear weapons is going to diminish over time as precision weapons get better. These drones and things that they have now, and the way they're able to just target things on the battlefield and destroy them, almost like a video game, is again very precise precision weapon type stuff, and it's only going to get better. And I don't think we're too far away before we start seeing like robots on the battlefield. Like, we have them in the air now, really, right? There's a human being making some decisions, like destroy this target or destroy that target, but the rest of it is all computer control. It's all fly by wire, and the things are just blowing things up. And so it's only a matter of time before, based on like these Boston Dynamic robots that we see and all this sort of stuff, that we're not too far away from having like that kind of Terminator type of robot going into a battlefield and fighting if we wanted to do that. Although I don't think that you necessarily need to have a humanoid robot. You know what I mean? I think like you can have like
this thing's from RoboCop.
Yeah, or tanks, that are smart tanks or things like that can assess targets and take them out without people losing their lives, and all that sort of stuff. I don't know. I just think that I don't think nuclear war is imminent, but if it were to happen, it seems unlikely that it would become a world-ending type of thing. I think it would be limited in nature. If it ever did escalate to something that was a worldwide thing, it's hard to say. I used to think, well, the radiation and the fallout would destroy everything on the Earth, but in truth, the radiation from a nuclear blast is diminished. Almost all that radiation gets used up in the blast. That's why you can walk around Hiroshima and Nagasaki today, and you're not going to get skin, or you're not going to get cancer or whatever, thyroid cancer or anything, because there's no radiation there. Whereas nuclear power plants like Fukushima and Chernobyl, they didn't burn their radiation up. Their radioactive particles got vented into the atmosphere and landed on the ground, and that's a whole different thing. So, like, a nuclear blast that blows a city up, that's, going to create a huge fire, and it's going to make a giant, cloud of dirt and debris, and maybe for a little while, like 2 weeks, it might not be safe to go outside. But I think most of that would diminish. Some people talk about nuclear winter, and all those nuclear blasts would make the earth frozen and cold and stuff. Maybe. It's a question of how long would that stuff really stay up in the air? And, I don't think it would stay up there that long. I mean, most of those particles are pretty heavy. I think the air would diminish it fairly quickly, and it would rain down on the ground. Listen, life as we know it would be fucked up, and it would be like, the end of everything we know in terms of modern civilization. But I don't think it would be the end of humanity, like I used to think. But it would definitely be hard. Life expectancies would certainly shrink, and it would just be a different world. But yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't want to live in it. But
Luckily, we were prepared for it by listening to lots of heavy metal music in the 80s.
Yes.
Because that's all they talked about.
And movies, right? All those 80s B movies, people living in the wastelands and shit.
People are like, how come this doesn't freak you out? It's like, I listen to Megadeth. I'm good. Right.
Yeah, I don't know. And then one other thing I wanted to just touch on is, long time ago, back in the early days of running a forum or whatever, I met a nice guy as a kid. He was younger than me. He invited me over to dinner to meet his dad, because his dad had this idea of coming up with a search system based on a kind of algorithm that he sort of developed, and he wanted to talk to me about it and then see if I'd be interested in programming it for him. Unfortunately for him, it turned out to be something that somebody had already invented. It just wasn't in the sector that he was in. It's called terminal digit in the regular world. But anyway, when we were talking to me and this kid, he asked me, he's like, what do you think about, trying to, as a world society, do better on working for world hunger, right? Feeding starving kids. Because as you recall, and maybe other people do that listen to this, when we were growing up, there would always be some African kid on TV with flies on his face, with a big belly hanging out, right?
Yeah,
starving. Kids bony and everything, and they're like, just for the price of a cup of coffee, you could help this kid have a sandwich. Right. Please call us right now at this number and help us do this kind of thing. And I used to sit around and think about it. I'm like, wow, all these starving people. You used to hear about this, there's starving kids in Africa. Eat your vegetables, But really, as I've gotten older and more skeptical about things, starving is kind of not the right word, because how long can you starve? A week? And then you're dead, right? 2 weeks, maybe, you're dead. You're dead. You can't live without food. You can drink water for, I think maximum is 2 weeks or something like that without food. But without calories, you're done. Your heart stops. You're dead. So how long, if you had a city full of people with no food, how long are they going to make it? You know what I mean? They're not. They're going to be dead. So we're not really talking about, except for in North Korea, which is just a fucked up dictatorship that doesn't actually feed all their people when they're out of food. The rest of the world, in general, the people that are alive tend to have food. The problem is that it's the quality of food that is the problem, right? People are eating garbage. They're eating, leftovers. They're eating one kind of food in order to, and they're malnourished. And it's really about nourishment worldwide than it is anything else. Like, for instance, before all this North Korea missile fire and bullshit, I think it was like in the early Obama phase, we were actually going to send North Korea biscuits. And they're kind of like cookies, really, but they call them biscuits. And they were just like sort of a plain thing that was just full of nutrition. And it was stamped with like from the United States on it, because we wanted to be like, we don't want you to try and trick your people that, we're giving you, something that you made. Although I'm sure the North Koreans would just crumble that shit up and so nobody would know. Right. But we were going to give them that in order to help them feed their people with the right kind of nutrition and not just eat rice all the time or fish or whatever there is that they're eating over there, roots and tree bark and shit. Of course, I don't think that ever got off the ground. Although it's hard to say because I don't think sanctions that we put on countries like them, like Iran and all that kind of stuff, I don't think that includes food aid. I can't imagine, although maybe with North Korea, because North Korea has a tendency to take the food aid and just give it to the military and make their military, better and not actually distribute it to their population. At least that's what we hear here. But the thing is that, these world food programs that are out there are feeding all of these people, as long as their governments are effective. Don't get me wrong. There are historic scenarios like in Ethiopia where there have been horrible droughts and people starve and some people starve to death. And there's war and people get, they get cut off from food aid and they're trapped in, inhospitable conditions and they starve to death. I realize there is such a thing as starvation and it does happen. But how long have they been running these commercials of these starving kids in Africa, Dan? I mean, like the last 30 years or something?
Here's what I want to know. If everybody's over there starving and it's all hot and there's no water and it's just the worst.
Right.
Who's having sex?
Right. Right. Who's having new kids, right? Now, how can you have a kid? How do you feed that kid, a pregnant woman, for 9 months, to just eat for 2? Get out of here. Get out of here.
Right. Doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. Right. Exactly.
They need a sign outside their village that says starving children at play.
So it's more of a government failure kind of thing with their governments and their ability to distribute food aid, or they don't want to be, I think like Pol Pot when he was in control of Cambodia, I think it was after Vietnam, he wanted to be a true communist socialist type of thing and make it so his country could sustain itself, and he didn't want any outside aid or help, and ended up killing millions of people due to starvation and other such things because he just didn't want to open up to the outside world, and you kind of have to today. I mean, it's the only way. There's only so many countries that it can actually produce enough food to feed these massive populations that are everywhere. I mean, as much as we argue with China over things, I mean, China cannot feed itself. It does not have the ability to create enough food to sustain itself at all. I mean, it has a massive population. And we, the United States, has to send boatloads of soybeans and other things over there constantly in order to feed their voracious appetite. And I'm sure that's the same with places like India. I mean, India, if you think of India, it's like what you just described. It looks like it's hot and terrible, and they have almost as many people as China does, or if they're going to eventually have more, and their whole situation is crazy, right? Because it's like their infrastructure is just not designed to manage that kind of that many people, and they're ripe for a catastrophe of sorts. They talk about running out of water. Now, water is a different thing. There's no shortage of water. like you hear about people talking about they're running out of water here, etc. Yes, but that is because governments just don't want to pay to fix the problem. That's what that's about. Because the earth is 3/4 water. You
Right.
can desalinate water. You can pipe water in. You can make canals and everything you know, regardless of where you are, you know, we can get water to you. You can truck it in if you want to. It's just water is just about money. And your government doesn't want to spend the money to fix the problem. But water is a different thing than food. So don't ever buy into the fact that, oh no, these people are out of water. What are they going to do? Like, they're going to kill their fucking elected officials if they don't fix the problem is what they're going to do.
Yeah.
It's stupid that they can't, you know, get the water in over there. I'm not saying those are quick problems to fix, but I'll tell you this much. Cleveland probably has enough water to feed the whole world. we get rain and snow and rain and water. It's just, I mean, it's just nuts how much water there is in just our little town, Northeast Ohio. Right. It's just crazy. I mean, people need water. Just come here. We got water. We got a lake full of this shit, you know?
Hook you up.
And you can't even drain the lake. You can't drain the lake because it's below the water table. So all the water that's underground goes into the lake. So if you tried to take more water out of the lake will just fill itself back up. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's plenty of water in the world. Food, though, that's you know, they're talking about running out of fish in the ocean. That's a genuine concern. The ocean's pretty big, though. I mean, if you manage to get all the species of one kind of fish, other than whales and shit, to be eliminated, you did a really good job covering the whole ocean. It's gigantic, you know? But I definitely see that overfishing can be an issue, and we have to fix it. I mean, these sorts of food problems, they also just really come down to money. It comes down to having the money and building the right kind of irrigation and farms, and if you don't have the right arable land, then it's about, you know, being creative and building up, and you know, and all that kind of thing in order to build enough food. Now, I also just think, though, that, like, we have enough people on this planet right now. Like, I don't think we really need any more. Like, I'm not saying we have to, like, stop having kids, but, like, if you're married to somebody and you have more than 2 kids, you should really, like, not have any more. Like, because you're not helping. You're making things worse, I think.
Right.
Like, there's literally, you know, there's not enough raw resources to go around, and the earth is getting more and more. I mean, eventually it's all houses. Eventually it's all buildings. There's not going to be nature or anything anymore because we're just building on top of building on top of building, and we're digging and digging and digging all these resources out of the earth. And, you know, we will eventually go into space and get materials that we need from asteroids and other planets. That's a long ways away, I think. And, you know, the thing is that if our population keeps growing like this, now the United States, actually, it's not too big of a problem. Our population actually goes down without immigration, because the more, I don't want to say successful, but the more modern your society is, I guess, the less people have kids, right? Like, you know, I didn't have any kids. Joe didn't have any kids. Mole had 1 kid. You had 1 kid. George never had any kids, as far as I know. Tom just had 2 kids. I don't know how many Gary has. 2, 3?
3.
Dan has 2. So my point being is that if you look at it, like, you know, like Amber had 1.
Rob's got 2.
Rom's got 2. So if you take all those numbers and you look at the people involved, it's kind of like it's a lower number than the number of couples, right? There's always going to be like the Gallaghers out there that have like 15 kids, right, to help make up some of that difference, but it's not enough. In general, we have something like 1.3 kids per couple, you know, on statistics. So if we didn't have immigration, the population of the United States would shrink. And I'm sure COVID and various other illnesses in the last couple of years hasn't helped things. I'm sure the population has has gone down other than immigration.
Right.
And that is not just true of the United States. It's true of most modern countries. It's a known thing that if your country becomes prosperous, then the people stop having children. Oddly enough, Don, when you ask, if it's miserable, who's having time to have sex? You know,
Exactly.
but apparently, like the more third world your country is, there's nothing to do but have sex. You know, so you're just like, well, we watched the soccer game. Let's go back to the shack and fuck. You know, and that's what people are doing. And then they end up with like 10 kids or something. I don't know. But if we can get the rest of the world modernized, that would be a good thing. One thing that I do think about sometimes is, man, Mexico is fucked up. Like, I know everybody knows that, but like, you're living right next to the most prosperous country in the world. Canada is living next to the most prosperous country in the world. Canada is almost like the United States in a lot of ways, right? They don't have as big of a military. They're sort of subservient to us in some ways. But for the most part, you know, they've got a lifestyle that's very close to ours, in some ways better, you know, free medical care, that kind of thing. Although I know it comes out in their taxes and everything. And, but they have a nice, peaceful society. They don't have as much problems as we do. Their crime isn't as bad as ours, etc. And so they do all right. Whereas Mexico, like, you know, what is it, 400 years or something we've been doing this? Like can what's going on?
Right.
Like why is it so constantly corrupt and bad down there? Like I don't know how you fix it, I guess, but I is it just because it's hot? Maybe it's just because it's hot and they're just like, it's so hot that we can't get it together down here. Because I mean, like, look at Central America. That's a fucking mess. That's on the equator and that's hot. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like maybe it's something to do with the closer to the equator you are, the more terrible it is. And then when you get lower, you get to like Australia and stuff, or South Africa, and then you know, and some of the other South American countries that are kind of okay, like Chile and maybe Argentina or something. Although Brazil does okay. I mean, they got a lot of crime and issues, but their economy is at least. Like I think it's like the 5th largest in the world or something like that. So, you know, they're kind of turning things around. But Mexico, man, you would just think Mexico would do better. You know, they're North America. They're not in Central America. They're right on the border. They're next to California, for crying out loud, and Texas. I mean, those 2 states alone are, you know, prosperous as shit. And, you know, they generally have to deal with the same border issues that Canada does. So what's the problem?
Not really. There's not many people like trying to hop fences and going around the gates from Canada to the United States.
There's that, but I mean, I get the immigration issues and stuff, but I don't think that's the answer to the problem. The answer to the problem is like, why can't they build up their infrastructure to have these things, you know, to have a prosperous life over there? Like,
well, that's the people that are in charge.
Yeah,
it makes it easier for them to keep everybody in poverty, and you know what I mean. And then what do you do when you don't have money? What do? You turn to a life of crime, or you start selling drugs, or you start running. You know, now all of a sudden you're a mule or something. You know what I mean? It's like
I think a lot of it. You're right. I think a lot of it has to do with like infrastructure too. Like for instance, like if you like we created this NAFTA thing, and so we have all of these factories and you know, cars being made over there and all this sort of stuff. And of course their workers aren't getting paid what our workers are, but their cost of living isn't our cost of living, right? By any measure. So they don't necessarily need as much, but still you would think that would start to allow them to become better educated and create businesses of their own. So I'm sure some of them do. But I think part of the problem is that the infrastructure doesn't lend itself to creating businesses that can spread out in the country. Well, I mean, first of all, obviously right now they got problems with drug cartels and gangs, right? You got to deal with that problem. You can't have people shooting each other in the street and all that kind of shit going on. Like I mean, we've got a little bit of that with our crime. I mean, drugs are everywhere, but I mean, they've got some serious crazy shit going on. People being hung from fucking bridges and shit. Like that's not going to go if you want to open up your own Colonel Sanders and shit in a city. People getting killed, murdered, and exploited, and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, so you got to stop the corruption. But I guess what I'm saying is like it's kind of a given in the United States. Like let's say you decide you come up with the recipe. You're like, Kevin, I figured it out. I know how to make the Little Caesars meatball sub. I figured out the recipe. I got the meatballs, the right cheese, and the sauce. We're gonna open our own restaurant, and we're gonna sell these subs, and it's gonna be a huge success. And I'd be like, awesome. And then you open one, and you start selling. And you say to yourself, all right, now let's put one down in like Columbus, right? Let's open another one in Columbus, and you can do that. And basically, you can get some property, build a facility, and everything, get it hooked up and ready to go. Where in a place like Mexico, and not everywhere, but I'm just saying, like you might be like, well, let's put a building over there, and they would be like, yeah, we don't have power on this street, we don't have a sewer system here for that, like we don't have a gas line for your ovens, like that's not here, So then you're just like, well, fuck, like how am I gonna build this shit, And so you end up with a kind of a bad system, or a system that can't support the kind of expansion that you would need to give people all those jobs and things. And I think a lot of times these governments, because they want votes and things, they end up trying to do social programs. So, they do things to put money into the community and stuff, but they don't really fix the infrastructure things, which tend to be more expensive and don't show immediate results. But the social program things, while, beneficial at the time, they don't create growth. So the money gets spent, you get a little bit of something, and then it's gone, right? There's no more revenue coming in from that. It was like a one-time deal, where if you have growth, you build businesses then, taxes, and people have jobs and money, they build schools and hospitals and all these other things, and you get hey, I played SimCity, I know how this all works. And you grow your civilization. And I think a lot of that has to do with a lot of these countries in the South. Now, I realize that things get better in some places. Like Mexico City's huge, it's one of the largest cities in the world, and I know they have a lot of infrastructure there, but then they also have things that are just kind of like, corrupt and not very well organized. And I don't know. It's weird. Like, how do you fix that kind of a thing? You just have to have really great leadership, but it's been this way for so long.
Right.
How do you fix it? I don't know.
Yeah.
The people got to get tired of this shit eventually and want to make change. I don't know.
You would think.
You would think.
That's what I'm saying. It all comes down to the leadership. They're choosing. It's almost as if they're choosing to do it, and they're saying, okay, this is the way it is. Deal with it. And people want to change it, or they don't want to live like that, or they don't want to be like that, But they get beat down so much, and they get just so used to it that they're just like, all right, I guess this is just the way it is.
Yeah, but it's like, why aren't we that way? Like, maybe we're gonna be that way. Like,
because we have freedom of speech.
Yeah,
we have the amendment. The Constitution.
I think a lot of people have that stuff. Europe works out okay. All those different countries, for the most part, are all fairly prosperous at this point, even after like world wars. I think you can turn it around. Let's look at it seriously. Like Hitler, was in power in Germany. The whole country was basically destroyed. Right? Every factory was bombed and blown up. Millions and millions and millions of people died. Same with Russia. Most of Russia was destroyed, and 25 million people were killed or injured. A big chunk of their population was wiped out, and both countries managed to get back on their feet. I think Germany is now like the most successful economy in Europe, and Russia, of course, after the World War II, became the Soviet Union, and even though they were a communist socialist nation, they still managed to have space program and build a giant military to challenge the United States and everything else. And so, it's like you can turn it around, and you can turn it around fairly quickly if you have the right leadership. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a brutal leadership like the Soviet Union, because Germany did it without having a dictator,
Right.
in order to turn around. Same with Japan. I mean, Japan, we didn't blow up everything in Japan, but in a lot of ways, Japan was kind of almost a feudal system still. I mean, it was still kind of backwards, in their, at the end of World War II. And they did go through a bit of some economic troubles, but they, used their workforce and turned things around and became a major economy in the world, from hard work and a good leadership. And it's just, fuck, man, I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't understand what's going on. I mean, maybe the United States does things to these. Maybe it's not even just the United States, but maybe other countries do things that cause these countries to be where they are in order so we don't have strong neighbors. We want weak neighbors or something. Maybe it's something along those lines too, that they can't get ahead. I don't know.
But that's it. But there's think of it militarily or whatever, not militarily, but whatever, access wise. If you wanted to get into the United States, there's one of two ways: by plane or on foot. You know what I mean? On foot, you're either coming through Canada or you're coming through Mexico.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like one of those two spots is going to be evil, because that's where, you know what I mean? Because that's where all the dirty stuff's going on.
Yeah, I feel like the illegal immigration thing gets demonized. I would listen. I think
I'm talking about everything, drugs.
For sure. I think that the border, you do have to tighten up the border, but it's you have to fix the whole system. Like, we have to have immigration in this country, like we just talked about, because our population would go down. But there has to be a fair system so that the right people get in, and not everybody that just wants to come in can come in, because as though that would be great, there would be too many people, and social systems would be too stressed. So you have to kind of find, a way to do it that's fair. But if the border is wide open, then you can't do it. I don't know if like having a giant wall or a moat with alligators swimming in it or something is really the answer.
No.
But I do think that, a lot of it just comes down to policy. I mean, we catch these guys and then, we send them back, and then, or sometimes
they try again.
Yeah, well, right. Or we don't send them back. A lot of businesses, don't get fined or look the other way, et cetera. And, that's a difficult thing. I respect people that are trying to find a better life for themselves and want to get out of where they are because there's no opportunities and things. I guess what I'm saying is instead of trying to build a wall or let's send all these people back, like, can't we build more opportunities in Mexico? Can we fix this corruption problem that they have, this infrastructure problem, and have businesses, restaurants, stores, hospitals, things there, so that those people can prosper and work at those places and not have the need to come to the United States. And, but I don't know. I don't know what prevents that other than corrupt government officials. I'm sure there's money is, of course, another thing, but
money and power.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's money. I mean, there's
pride.
There's money. Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff, because you could sit there and offer them all the help they want, and then look at when Ronald Reagan thought he was helping Afghanistan by giving them weapons and stuff, and they turned around and used them on us or something like that, right? I mean,
basically.
It's like you can't nowadays. You can't trust anybody nowadays. That's just where the world is. It's like,
oh, I know.
Everybody's out for themselves. Everybody's opinion is their opinion, and it doesn't matter what you think. So it's like you get, you know what I mean? So if you got a leader in there who goes, well, I think it's best if we just go around and kill all the children. And it doesn't matter what you think. That's what he's going to do. So it's like, you could try to help their infrastructure, but as soon as you leave, they're just going to turn back.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that like the whole population is like that. It's not the populace. It's not the people that live there. It's the people that are in control of everything. And like you said, you want to change, you want to put some kind of infrastructure in there, and you want to say, hey, here's how you do it. But all they see is, oh, here come the Yankees.
Well, of course,
the
but I think
gringos or whatever
I don't
coming in
think
here
we
and trying
go
to
in and
change us.
right. I don't think we go in and tell them what to do. I think we could work with a government that is more receptive to us helping them. And if that's a dollar figure with the goal of having tangible benefit that we can see, great. But I think that it's a double-edged sword. Like, if we're spending our money to keep them out, we could be spending money to build their infrastructure instead, so they want to stay in, and then we might want to go there. You know what I mean? Like people go to Canada or something. I mean, pre-COVID, like. I mean, people go to Mexico for parties or whatever, or visit when things are peaceful. But, if they built up their society to be like another Canada type of neighbor, maybe without the curling and mooses and
the niceness. If you think about it, like you said, people go to Mexico for vacations and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But what's like the one thing, like throughout the history of time? Like, even since we were like little kids, what is the one thing you've always heard about Mexico?
Speedy Gonzales.
Well, that's one of them, but don't drink the water.
Right. But then that goes to the infrastructure thing. I mean,
that's the thing. It's like, it's been that way for decades. You know what I mean? It's like, for decades, these people have been like, don't drink the water, don't drink the water, don't drink the water. Your water's bad. Do something.
Right.
Right. And they're just like, no, we're cool. We'll just take it from the river.
No, exactly.
Dead cow in the river down the way.
If I was president, you only have so much money to work with, but you have to spend money, I think, on infrastructure related projects. Improve the water, improve the electricity grid, improve heat if you need it in certain areas, mountains or whatever, because not everything needs heat. But make it so that it's roads are there and well taken care of and things, so that business can come in. And, you need security too. You need to be able to make it a safe environment for people. But you want to be able to make it so that business can come in and work, as well as homes can be built and schools and hospitals and everything else. Because if you don't have that infrastructure, if you don't have the clean water, if you don't have the right things, then ultimately, nothing's going to ever get established, or it's going to be so slow to get there, or it's going to be very small things. I mean, I remember reading about these roads that just like had like these highways that were recently built there that had like a big like crater like sinkhole happen in them because they were built poorly, that kind of thing, and some people died or whatever, and you're just kind of like like that kind of shit. If that kind of shit happened here, I mean, people would be executed, basically. You know what I mean? Right. Like, if it was a shoddily built highway and people died and there was a big hole in it, I mean, it would be unbelievable. How crazy shit would be over some shit like that. It can happen, of course, but, it wouldn't happen all the time because, a lot of heads would roll. But in these other countries, this kind of corruption, these things happen and then nothing really gets done about it, and I don't know. I really think that you got to overhaul your government and get the right people in place to make the right kind of change. Otherwise, you just end up with shit. I don't know. Not to make fun of Mexico. I like Mexico. I just, I wish it was just better. That's all.
Yeah, it's not about the people or
of course not.
the heritage or anything like that. I mean, it's been around a lot longer than most people, other people. But it's just the corruptness of, like you said, here's the guy that everybody likes. Well, 2 days later, he's assassinated. It's just like, shit. It's like there's always somebody who's like, no, this isn't the way we want it. We're going to change it.
I think it's just true of a lot of places around the world. There should be more opportunity for people to work, make money, and have good lives. And
sure.
That's why a lot of people have been like leaving Syria and things, because it's war torn and going into Europe, and now, of course, with the war in Ukraine, they're going to like Poland and trying to get into Germany and things like that, because these places have the kind of lifestyles that these people want to live in, and obviously they don't want to be in a war zone. But I think that if we could make more country, well, certainly we don't want war, but if we could make more countries better places to live, then a lot of the illegal immigration would stop, and we would have a lot less problems, xenophobia that we have now. So I don't know. I think a lot of this Mexicans coming over the border stuff, that kind of started in the 90s more than anything. Like when we were kids, can't remember it being really talked about too much. It was kind of like Mexico is Mexico,
Crazy.
the United States is the United States. Do you remember it, really? People?
Yeah, that was like the big thing, like truckloads of people, and
I know we had
everybody was
coyotes
hiding.
and things like that, yeah, but,
Yeah, and you'd always hear about people from like Cuba and rafts, and
well,
you know,
Castro, he opened up all his jails and sent all the prisoners to the United States on boats. That's a different thing. But I never really thought of Mexico being. I mean, I went to Mexico a couple of times. I mean, it was vacation kind of thing.
yeah,
With the family and stuff. It wasn't. It wasn't like it is now, I guess. But whatever.
yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Anyway,
A couple of white boys talking about some shit we're not even near. You know what I mean?
yeah,
What do we know?
yeah.
We don't know nothing.
I don't. I've never been. No,
A couple of kids. Couldn't the kids play
These
the
kids.
drum?
they could.
Limited edition hippopotamus.
3 knives, $300. I don't know how that. I don't know what that breaks down to.
It's great stuff. Corber was actually reached out to me the other day. I was talking to him on the phone. His wife is sick of him.
Oh yeah,
And she's like, you got to get out because I'm tired of looking at you or something. Not like throwing him out, but like he's got to
right.
be out of the
Go do
house.
something.
Yeah, go do
Yeah.
something else. And so I told him, I said, well, when we start doing trivia again, I'll invite him. He probably
Yeah.
won't show up, but But I don't know when that's going to be because Larry is still in Florida. He said he might come up in April, and then he's going to have to go back down. Might come up for 2 weeks in April, and then go back down. It's kind of crazy that he has to be down there that long. I don't know.
Oh, his dad passed, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, and Larry, it's a weird thing because it's like Larry's the executor, but his dad put everything in a trust. So I don't quite know how that works in this case.
Yeah.
I know how a traditional will and probate and all that sort of stuff works, but when you put everything inside of a trust, I don't know.
Right.
I have no idea.
Right.
But Larry's basically handling it. He has a sister too, but I don't think she's down there. I think it's just him. And I don't know. And I don't know what he's going to get. He might come up here in a Ferrari, mink coat,
Right.
big gold chains and stuff. Be like, hello,
Could come
boys.
back up broke.
I'm retired. Let's go drink. Be like, all right, dude.
Right.
Party on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, anyway, I don't have any new TV talk. We'll talk TV next week. I think we'll just wrap this one up. You got anything else? Anything new? You still at your job?
For the time being, I've already told all the dudes that I work with that I won't be there long. So
Right, yeah.
they're already like, "What?" It's like, yeah. I go, this job's dumb. Although today it was like half hour before we were leaving, and I was like, "What else do we got to do?" He goes, "We just got to sit here and be bored for half an hour." And I was like, "Oh,
Finally.
okay, well, I'll take that." Yeah, it's like it's about time we got the chance to sit around and do nothing.
Right.
Sweet.
That's cool.
So
All right, well, everybody, thanks. We'll be back next week with more. We'll catch up. I think there's going to be a new Marvel show soon, so probably talk about that shit.
by the end of the week,
There you go. Peace.
peace.
You've been listening to Oblast with Don and Kevin. If you'd like to write into the show, send an email to oblast@vgn.us. That is VGN as in video game news. And be sure to check out our Patreon page, which is at patreon.com/VGN, where you can get all of our shows, our videos, and some musings. Be sure to tune in each week for new episodes on our Patreon page or every other week on the public RSS feed that you're subscribed to now. Thanks for listening, and good night.
Peace.